I didn't leave my marriage, not in the way people expect. There was no suitcase packed in anger, no door slammed, no dramatic goodbye. I stayed. But there came a day I realized something that shook me to my core. I was already gone. Gone in ways no one could see. Gone without moving an inch, and that scared me more than leaving ever could. I still woke up beside him every morning, still cooked, still cleaned, still asked how his day went. If you looked at us from the outside, you would think everything was fine. That's the thing about silent marriages. They look peaceful to people who don't live inside them. I remember the exact moment I noticed the shift. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't even cruelty. It was indifference. That slow, quiet thing that sneaks into a home and rearranges everything without asking permission. He stopped asking questions. I stopped volunteering answers. We coexisted. And slowly, coexistence replaced connection. At first, I told myself this was normal. People say marriage isn't always exciting. People say love matures. People say feelings fade. So I adjusted. Again. I adjusted my expectations. I adjusted my needs. I adjusted my voice. I learned how to be easy, low maintenance, understanding. I became the woman who didn't complain. And no one tells you how dangerous that woman can become, not to others, but to herself. I stopped sharing my thoughts because they were often dismissed. You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. You're reading meaning into nothing. So I learned to doubt my own instincts. I learned how to question my feelings before I questioned his behavior, and that's when I began to disappear. There is a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being emotionally abandoned while still legally attached. It comes from sleeping beside someone who no longer reaches for you, not physically, but emotionally. I missed being chosen, not once, not occasionally, daily. I remember lying in bed at night, staring into the dark, listening to his breathing, wondering when we stopped being us. I would replay conversations in my head, asking myself if I said too much or not enough. I learned how to cry quietly, not because I wanted to hide my pain, but because I didn't want to be told I was exaggerating again. People around me praised my strength. She's such a good wife. She's patient. She holds her home well. They didn't know that strength was costing me my identity. They didn't know that every compliment felt like a reminder that my silence was being rewarded. I stayed because leaving felt like failure, because I was raised to believe marriage is endurance, because women are taught that sacrifice is love, because faith told me to pray harder, not speak louder. So I prayed. I prayed for change. I prayed for softness. I prayed for connection. But slowly, my prayers changed. They stopped being about him and started being about me. I began asking God questions I had never allowed myself to ask. Why do I feel so small here? Why do I feel unseen? Why does staying feel like self-betrayal? And in the silence, not the painful silence, but the holy one, I realized something terrifying. God was not asking me to disappear to keep a covenant alive. That realization shook me, because if faith wasn't demanding my erasure, then why was I offering it? I noticed how numb I had become. I stopped reacting, stopped hoping, stopped expecting effort. Numbness became my shield. Pain hurts, but numbness empties. I was still functioning, but I wasn't alive. There were moments I caught myself fantasizing about a version of life where I felt emotionally safe again. Not another man, not another relationship, just peace. Just being able to breathe without guarding my heart. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. I struggled with guilt. Because how do you explain feeling unhappy in a marriage that hasn't failed on paper? There was no abuse people could see, no scandal to justify my exhaustion, just neglect. And neglect doesn't leave bruises, it leaves holes. I realized something heartbreaking. I had become so good at surviving my marriage that I forgot how to live inside it. I stopped bringing my full self into the room. I edited my words, filtered my emotions, lowered my expectations, and slowly, I became a shadow of myself. The day I truly woke up wasn't loud. I was sitting alone, doing something ordinary, when the thought came uninvited. If nothing changes, can I live like this forever? That question didn't scare me because of the answer. It scared me because of how quickly the answer came. I didn't leave, but I stopped lying to myself. I stopped pretending numbness was peace. I stopped calling silence maturity. I stopped spiritualizing emotional starvation. I started listening to my body, my exhaustion, my sadness, and I realized they were messengers, not weaknesses. I began reclaiming small pieces of myself, my thoughts, my voice, my boundaries, not aggressively, not rebelliously, quietly, gently, like someone picking herself up piece by piece. This story doesn't end with perfection. I am still married, still human, still learning, but I am no longer absent from my own life. And that, more than anything, changed me. If you are listening to this and feel this story in your chest, if you are married and numb, single and afraid, or healing quietly, I want you to hear this clearly. Staying is not the same as being present. Endurance is not the same as love. And silence is not peace. I stayed, but I was already gone. The question now isn't whether I stay or leave. The question is, will I keep leaving myself, or will I finally come home?